The biggest question McLaren's rivals are chasing an answer for right now is just why is the team's 2025 car so good at managing its rear tyre temperatures? Nobody outside of McLaren knows for definite, but it's fair to say that there is unlikely to be a single silver bullet element that's making the difference. Instead, there are probably a multitude of factors, such as the car's aerodynamic platform and suspension kinematics, that are playing their part in making McLaren so dominant in certain conditions. But one of the more intriguing elements related to McLaren's advantage that has popped up in recent weeks is its braking system, and the contribution this is making to keeping its rear tyre temperatures under control. Intrigue on this front has especially gone into overdrive in the wake of Red Bull having got hold of, from an outside party, some thermal images of rear brake drums that are understood to have been taken at pit stops during the Japanese Grand Prix. Suggestions that they show the McLaren brake drums running much cooler than other teams fueled wild talk of there being some potential tricks at play. Various theories have quickly got thrown around as a result, some of which have been easier to discount than others. There has been the idea of McLaren using clever carbon fibre weave for its drums to help leak cool air to the wheel rims, or of it using phase-changing materials to help limit temperature gains or change airflow direction. And then there have been wild accusations of it blowing vapour inside the drums, which would be strictly illegal, as liquid cooling of the brakes is forbidden under F1's rules. There were also erroneous paddock whispers that the FIA had found something it did not like on the McLaren that had confiscated parts earlier in the season. This supposedly explained why the squad was not as dominant as many people expected in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. However, any talk of it doing anything outside the regulations, either before or present, was blown out of the water in Miami. Firstly, the heat at the Hard Rock Stadium helped the squad deliver its most crushing victory of the season so far, as Oscar Piastri came home more than 35 seconds clear of the first non-McLaren to show that nothing had changed in its form since the start of the campaign. And then it also emerged that multiple checks conducted by the FIA and the McLaren brakes, including a more detailed inspection on Sunday night in Miami, confirmed that everything it was doing was firmly within the rules. The message from the FIA is crystal clear: whatever McLaren is doing is legal and is simply just clever. Before we dig into what may be behind McLaren's advantage on this front, it's probably worth having a quick refresher on the complexities of the brake designs of modern F1 cars. From the outside, what we normally get to see as the wheels come off the car are nearly identical brake drums, and that's because the rules pretty much mandate the size and shape of these. These drums are carbon fibre lids that fit over the brake housings that incorporate the brake discs, the brake pads and brake calipers that all work together to help stop the car. It's underneath this drum where teams have their own unique solutions and a bid to resolve some conflicting elements when it comes to dealing with brake and tyre temperatures. With the help of moving airflow that arrives through ducts that's situated on the inside of the wheel housing, teams need to carefully ensure the brakes are warm enough to work properly so the carbon fibre elements are in their perfect operating window and not overcooled. However, teams then need to get the surrounding heat created by the friction between the pad and the disc when in use, which can get somewhere between 600 to 800 degrees centigrade, quickly expelled out of the back. If that air is not removed, then the extra heat will have an impact in warming up the drum and the wheel rim that sits on top of it, and that has consequences for tyre temperature management. Many teams actually make use of a double basket arrangement, where there is an inner basket that helps channel the hot air out the back of the drum. Here, for example, we can see Red Bull's version. The idea is that it then acts as an insulating layer to stop heat reaching the outer drum, with cool air lying between the two drums, keeping a lid on any excess heat reaching the outer surface and the tyres. The key element that teams are therefore chasing in this area is maximising the use of the airflow that's allowed to enter the brake ducts so that they can achieve the best cooling for the brakes, but also ensure there's that buffer of cool air sitting below the outer drum. As Alpine's technical director of chassis David Sanchez remarked recently about what teams are chasing, you basically want to use the minimum amount of air to cool the brakes and as much as possible to cool the rest. And let's not forget that teams' brake designs are different for the front and rear of the car. At the rear, it's all about minimising the temperature leak to the tyres, whereas at the front, teams are more open to get some heat through the tyres there because that can help with warm-up, which can be especially crucial for qualifying laps. Teams have very different philosophies when it comes to how they think they can best isolate the heat being thrown off from the brake discs. They want to get out the back of the car and not heat up the wheel rims, which then as a consequence warms up the tyres. But a close look at the rear solutions in all the teams points to McLaren perhaps being the most intricate in terms of how it's doing that. While other squads have aimed to help with cooling the brake discs or calipers by keeping elements exposed, McLaren appears to have enclosed them quite aggressively, most likely using ceramic-lined carbon fibre to help in this. Going so tight with the shroudings around the disc and caliper shows a fair degree of confidence from the team in being able to control the temperatures within them so they do not suffer thermal runaway. Based on the images we've seen, Its efforts to help control the temperature in this area are helped by it creating some intricate flow channels from the brake ducts to deliver the cooling effect it is after. Some of these are inside the carbon fibre elements that can be seen. And while we cannot be totally sure about how these are configured, we can give an informed guess about what's happening. A flow, indicated in yellow here, appears to be feeding air to the inner side of the brake disc, where there may also be some form of sensor that's out of sight. Then shown in light blue here is a channel that seems to feed air to the low slung caliper. Above that, and shown in dark blue, is ducting that looks to be feeding air to the outer side of the brake disc. But then surrounding all of this, which will later be encased in the brake drum, is another layer of cool air being fed in via a separate channel. This can be seen in green, and note how this envelopes everything to act as insulation. The cool air for this comes from a vent that appears to have been expanded for this season, based on a comparison image of McLaren's 2024 design that can be seen here. This circulating layer of cool air will minimise any heat transfer between the disc and caliper housings and the wheel rim itself. Adding on top of all the detailed engineering work in terms of directing the airflow that comes in is also a solid concept in how the air exits. A close-up of the exit ducts highlights how McLaren is meticulous in its design here too, with there being bespoke channels with a design that is different to the opposition. After all, cooling is not just about trying to force more air into a system, it's also about creating a better low pressure exit to drag that cooling flow through it.
Did you know you can get 75% off a membership with us if you take out our latest special offer on Patreon? It's a great time to check out the Race Members Club, including bonus podcasts and videos, exclusive behind the scenes insights, the chance to ask questions for our shows, community groups where you can chat with us and like-minded fans, and you get all of our regular podcasts and YouTube videos ad-free. So if you want to become the ultimate insider, head to Patreon via the link we've posted below and claim this limited time offer.
One other interesting aspect that appears to be unique with the McLaren is its use of a sensor that can be seen in purple here and has a silicon air pipe attached to it. While we cannot be sure what the sensor does, it's likely some form of pressure or flow sensor that could be measuring the outer airflow that's acting as the insulator to ensure that temperatures are being kept under control. It will ensure that the pressure is correct and that hot air is getting pushed out the back of the brakes and not staying inside it any longer than necessary. Likely used in practice, this is the sensor the squad has access to from the outer drum through a hole that it then has to tape up during qualifying in the races. This is because while it can do what it wants in practice and make use of this sensor, to comply with regulations for the remainder of the weekend, the rules stipulate that for each drum there must be a continuous, around an arc of 360 degrees, and uniform aerodynamic seal. The exploitation of pressure within the drums is something that McLaren is known to have been forced to get on top of in the wake of the problems it faced early in the 2022 season as it hit brake problems at that year's Bahrain Grand Prix. Speaking at the time about what had happened, then technical director James Key said that the team messed up with his initial design because of a pressure imbalance in the system that had not been picked up in the design phase. This led to air pressure building up in the duct because the flow was not running through to the exit as hoped. And it even experienced a phenomenon of the airflow actually reversing, where hot air was being pulled back to the disc rather than away from it. McLaren had to get to work sorting out the phenomenon it had uncovered, and it may have been in curing these problems that its understanding of the dynamics at play inside the drum will have been well advanced. Indeed, its head scratching then may well have laid the groundwork for it being so far in front of the opposition right now. With an FIA all clear for its brake design and the scale of the Miami win showing that its early season potential remained intact, McLaren team boss Andrea Stella spoke openly after that race about how the squad had targeted improved tyre management specifically for its MCL 39. He talked of the progress made and refinement to change the concept of its brake system has simply been the result of very good engineering. But it would be also wrong to say that McLaren's tyre advantage is all down to it having designed a braking system that provides better cooling than anyone else's, because there are other elements of the MCL 39 that will also be playing their part. One of the best ways of not having the brakes get too hot is not to put too much heat into the system in the first place. That could mean using a little higher percentage of electrical retardation from the rear axle under braking than other teams. There are also mechanical aspects of the McLaren that will be playing their part in helping manage the rear tyre temperatures too. The high percentage of anti-dive and anti-lift suspension layout it uses, plus the lateral suspension geometry, is likely to give the rear tyres a more consistent contact patch. And by controlling its centre of gravity height better, it means that the car doesn't unload its rear tyre as much under braking. That also helps reduce tyre temperature by offering better traction. Add together all the detail that McLaren is doing on the brake cooling to the fact that because of its mechanical choices, it's not putting so much heat into its tyres, and everything snowballs. A more stable rear end means the tyre runs a lot cooler, and if you're not putting as much brake temperature into it, everything all just adds up. So on hot days like Miami, at a track where there are a lot of braking and traction zones, it's clear to see that whatever McLaren is doing is giving a decisive advantage over the opposition, and it's now up to the others to work out exactly what's been done if they are to have any hope of catching up.